Yeah, you brought him into the conversation yesterday. Was Derek Klassen from uh, the 3013.com. And oh, by the way, coming up in less than 10 minutes from now, from the 3013, Paul Dunwich is going to join us. Joins us every single Friday. And I was ready to just flat out crush Paul Dunwich. I was waiting to get him on today because you ran down the list of the 33rd teams, and I had not seen it before the show. I didn't even know it was up there. You brought it to my attention yesterday. Had come out with a list of quarterback power rankings going forward to next year. And I was wondering if it was a compilation of, because they got a bunch of really good writers, Damo being just one of them on the 33rd team, if they had polled everyone and asked them, for, oh, no, this is one guy's opinion. And you're a football writer. I'm just a show host. Do you have an opinion on Derek Klassen? Have you been a fan of his? Do you know of his work?
No, I don't know that much about him. Not to um, no, so no, good or bad. Don't know that much about him, but that's why I never get upset by these rankings. They're usually one person's opinion. And I told you in the past, Jody, I said, if you don't like one, just go to the next one. That's basically where I am with them. But we are here and we got to talk Eagles every day. And it's interesting when, it's a very, uh, as you mentioned, it's a very good outlet. They have a lot of tremendous people working there. Mike Tannenbaum and Joe Banner started that thing. So, some really heavy hitters in the industry. Um, our own Paul Domowitch, as you mentioned. Um, so, when they say something, it carries some weight. So it's worth talking about. But yeah, I think he had Jalen Hurts too low. I don't think he's in the bottom half of NFL quarterbacks. The question is, how far has he fallen? We were talking about top five, coming into the season. How far has he legitimately fallen? Well, I don't think he's legitimately fallen to 17. But, if you're in that cusping 10 range and even outside of the 10, I'll listen to you. I mean, you can make that argument, I would say. I don't know where you are.
Oh, I am. Here's where I am. Who the hell's Derek Klassen? I don't care that he writes for the 33rd team. I'd never heard his name before yesterday. If you ask Derek Klassen who Jody McDonald was, he might go say, "Who the hell's Jody McDonald?" He might not know who I am either. So opinions are like noses. Everybody's got one. Here's what bothers me. We can agree to disagree when you do something like this, a list, a ranking. All it is an opinion, and I've said this 3,000 times on the radio. Your opinion can't be wrong. You can just disagree with it. You can vehemently disagree with it at times, but an opinion is just that. It's an opinion. You're not stating facts, you're just giving an opinion. I think his opinion is woefully wrong and way off base and borderline foolish. But it doesn't mean that I'm right and he's wrong. It's just an opinion. It is what it is. But here's what's wrong with it: he doesn't give any explanation of how he puts his ranking together. If you want to have an opinion, that's perfectly fine. And if you can justify it, if you can show, I feel like I'm back in the sixth grade, show your work, at least give us some kind of an explanation as to what you use, your line of reasoning behind putting your list together. Then I could accept it. Then I could say, all right, well, I don't quite, you put a
Well,
little
now to,
overemphasis
to
there and an
defend,
underemphasis
well,
there.
let's, to defend Derek, and I don't know
Please
Derek.
try.
There is a story that accompanies it, so I think everybody, sees the tweets and they look at the chart, and nobody reads anything. So there
I
is a
went
story.
to the Reds and the story said nothing.
Well, I'm saying there is at least an explanation to why he has the people in the positions he's in. Now, if you want to look at Derek's own work, he used to do draft stuff. He does analytics stuff for reception perception. So, if people want to look into it, they can look into it. But I mean, it wasn't just a list and there was nothing else with it. And I think far too many, because this happens to me all the time. And for people who don't know, like a lot of times when a story comes out, a lot of times reported all the time in a different era, all the time. We never had anything to do with the headlines,
Right,
anything.
right.
Now, sometimes it's a little bit different, but 99% of the time at Sports Illustrated, I have nothing to do with the headline, nothing. And a lot of times they go for these, to be blunt, headlines I don't like. Um, and all people do is read the tweet and read the headlines, and they lose their minds. And you got to say, read the story, read the story.
All right.
So there is some background to it. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, John, I'm going to read you the story. It's two paragraphs. Two paragraphs. So we can. It's almost not even on the line here. Here's the story. It's never too early to rank the quarterbacks. Of course, we don't know every team's starting quarterback will be yet. Some teams will draft one. Some teams will shuffle around their used parts via trades and free agency. A couple of teams might get stuck with the same old quarterback they've tried and failed to get rid of. With that in mind, we'll stick with the rankings of the quarterback who either mostly recently started a significant amount of games or are most certainly projected to be the starter next season. For time being, think of Aiden O'Connell for the former and Will Levis for the for the latter. Let's get started. What part of that story explains how he ranks the quarterback?
Well, again, I think the ranking part of it is self-explanatory.
How
He's
do you
ranking,
figure?
well, because there's 9 million lists of people ranking quarterbacks. I think we kind of understand it's his opinion of ranking quarterbacks, and then he lists his list and he explains, what he likes and what he dislikes about particular quarterbacks. In the case of Jalen, he said his athletic ability when healthy and his accuracy down the field are enough to make him a beacon for offensive production. However, the rest of Hurts' game still leaves something to be desired. It's been 4 years with Hurts as a starting quarterback. Hasn't been, but anyway, so there's a mistake. And he still has issues managing tight pockets and throwing over the middle of the field. That's fair. So many of the true drop back concepts are more static and less taxing than what most of the top quarterbacks handle. That's fair. That's been a criticism of the coordinators. The coordinator who was fired, by the way, assistant head coach in Washington for Brian Johnson. In fairness, maybe that's not on Hurts, but it's telling that the Eagles changed offensive coordinators and nothing changed on that front. Hurts isn't a bad quarterback. He's accurate, especially down the field, doesn't often put the ball in harm's way, which is true. What he offers in the run game is a major benefit. I just struggle to get over the bar with Hurts because of some of the inconsistencies as a true drop back passer. So, again, if you don't like it, go to the next guy, but there is an explanation of why he's got him where he wants it. I think it's too low, but and I'm here defending the guy. I don't even agree with him, but he does give his explanation.
And you're a writer and I'm not, but I'm sorry. I just think that's a lousy job. I think that if you're going to come out with something like a quarterback ranking, you have to explain. You're right. He gave him a full couple paragraphs about his opinions on Jalen Hurts and what he thinks of him as a quarterback. But there has to be an overall evaluative way that you're going to rank them. It's nice that he gave you a scouting report on each individual player, but why does Jalen Hurts' strengths and weaknesses, as we just went through, fall behind Anthony Richardson and his strengths and weaknesses? How did you come up with the fact that
Well,
I
would say
in at number 16 and
wow.
Jalen Hurts at number 17?
I think that's absurd. But I would say point to me the list other than PFF. Point to me the list, and you're going to see 100 lists, so we can go
Then
keep
I'll rip
moving
all
forward.
of them.
Yeah, I mean, show me one that does that, and I'll agree. I've yet to see one that does that because I think it's baked in. It's somebody's opinion. So if that's baked into it, I mean, it is what it is, and I'm with you 100%. I think it's absurd Anthony Richardson, who's barely played. Not that the guy's got unbelievable talent, but he's barely played, and he got hurt. And there was impressive moments. How many games did he play?
4.
Gardner made the Pro Bowl.
Right. He played 4. How many, John? You want to know? 4.
Yeah.
4 games.
So, I mean, I'm with you. That part's absurd. So obviously that's about potential. And
right.
if you
And
like
on some
somebody,
guys, he puts potential, seems to put a higher emphasis on potential. And on other guys, he puts more emphasis on what did you do for me lately? What were your stats over the last 7 weeks of the season? He doesn't do any attempt at trying to say, here's the way I look at things and where I put emphasis on when I come up with my list. And I think that makes the list pretty damn irrelevant.
well, I think they're all irrelevant. So I will agree there. I will just say as far as that's the way it is. I mean, if you've been around for a long time, and Jalen hasn't been around for a long time, and there's quarterbacks
Longer than Anthony Richardson.
yeah, but I mean, there's quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers who you have this massive sample size, and that can both help and hurt. You have a better feel for Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback than somebody who hasn't played a lot of quarterback, and that's just the nature of it. You're going to see it this year because there's 3 top tier quarterbacks in the draft: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Well, I guarantee you're going to hear wonderful things about all 3 of them. And I guarantee you right now, Jody, all 3 aren't going to hit the ground running like they're CJ Stroud. If you get one CJ Stroud as a rookie, that'd be beating the odds.
Yep.
So that's just the nature of it. People get enamored with the new shiny thing and the new guy, and Anthony Richardson's in that category. But yeah, I would firmly disagree with that specifically. Yeah, I mean, he's played 4 games. I don't know what else to say about that, other than that's complete projection. And Jalen Hurts, look, he had a bad end of the season last year. He was also runner-up for the MVP, in 2022. He's still pretty good. So yeah, I think being in the bottom half of quarterbacks, I think that's silly.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Just for those who are streaming in today, we're streaming in more. I don't think we even went through the whole list. You just gave a couple of highlights when you put it out there. We discussed it with Brad Spielberg, who, oh, by the way, he said, other than PFF, I think it was kind of ironic that we had a PFF guy on the air at the time when we brought up the list. And they're an outlet that actually does explain how they go about putting their lists and rankings together. So good on Pro Football Focus. Here's your quick, as per Derek Classen, who, I'm sorry, let me see if I can simplify. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing list. We will never.
We got to get Derek. I guess we're not going to get Derek on the show.
We will never have Derek Classen on the air. If Derek Classen is on Birds 365, Jody McDonald will be on.
Now I want him on the air.
You can get him on. Pick a day, any day. I'll take the day off. Bill Colarulo and John McMullen talk to Derek Classen.
Wow. You're really fired up about this.
I'm
glad I brought it up.
It's a joke.
I like firing you up.
Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. By the way, there's one. What has Justin Herbert done?
Yeah,
he's the 4th ranked.
I love Justin Herbert.
No. I'll repeat the question, John. What has he accomplished? Other than you like his stock coming out of Oregon, he gets a couple of numbers. He hasn't won diddly squat. He's never a top-ranked quarterback, and then he's consistently good, but he really hasn't accomplished a lot to be the 4th best quarterback in the National Football League. Don't understand. Matthew Stafford, a little high. Dak Prescott.
Runner-up for the MVP, by the way, this year.
Puts up numbers. But here's the beauty of it. MVP. Thank you very much, John. MVP. What is that? It's a regular season award. Does Mr. Classen take playoff accomplishments into consideration, or is that irrelevant? Is he just ranking? Is the power ranking to place them for their possibility to win the MVP in the regular season next year?
Well, I'm not Derek Klassen.
You're not Derek Klassen, but I think it's a legitimate question because there's no explanation as to how he put this list together. Just personally, if I were going to put a quarterback list together, I would kind of take playoff accomplishment and or failure into consideration, but that's just me. Prescott 6, Stroud 7. See, that's potential. He's got a heavy on potential there. CJ Stroud had an unbelievable year, arguably the greatest rookie season ever in history of the National Football League. He's got him 8 spots ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Stroud 7, Lawrence 8. There's another one. You love Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. I love Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. He was the highest rated quarterback coming out of college since Andrew Luck. What has he done in his NFL career? Not a whole hell of a lot. He's been a marginal quarterback since he got into the league. Now he's still relatively young, but he hasn't done anything yet. Joe Burrow down at number 9 because he missed the last 7 games of the regular season this year. Man, that's bad. Jordan Love, what he did the last 9 games of the regular season. Oh, I guess he took the win over Dak Prescott into consideration because that certainly raised his profile. Kyler Murray 11, Geno Smith 12, Kirk Cousins 13, Jared Goff 14, Aaron Rodgers 15, just ahead of Richardson. Hurts 17, Purdy 18, Tua 19, Mayfield 20, Fields 21. I got a Fields point I want to make later in the show. Remind me of that.
That's
Derek
too high, by the way.
Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Bryce Young. 25 is not a good number, but at least he's ahead of a bunch of guys.
Yeah,
he's leaning on potential again there. Deshaun Watson. Ooh,
how far Deshaun Watson is? Well, boy, Deshaun Watson has dropped off a cliff. Yeah.
And he's accomplished a hell of a lot more than all these guys surrounding him, Ritter and Levis and Howell and O'Connell and Pickett and Bailey Zappi. So here's where I agree with Derek Klassen. Pat Mahomes, number 1, Bailey Zappi, number 32. The other 30 I got problems with, but he got the first one right and the last one right. So I'll give Derek Klassen a hand. Good job, big guy. Got the first one right and the last one right. So this should be fun because I see Paul Domwich is ready to join us. I don't know how well he even knows Derek Klassen. He writes for the same outlet that Derek does, but he might not know him from a hole in the wall either, much like me. But we'll get to that with Damo. Paul Domwich, 33rd Team, JAKIBSports.com. Joins us next here on Birds 365.